Ever since I can remember, I've always dealt with the thought of feeling behind in life or feeling like a failure at life. And I asked myself, what have I really done with my life as well? Let me explain. In terms of the traditional route, by 18, you finish high school. You either go get a job or you go to college. And by 22, you should be settling down, have a clear career plan, consider a family, and of course, contributing to your 401k and Roth IRA. And by 30, you're supposed to have a comfortable savings, a cushion, your first home, and your life all figured out at this point. And real talk, the truth is, I'm now 33 at the time of this shooting. And I actually went the traditional route. I actually became a pharmacist. I went to school. I was contributing my 401k, Roth IRA, and taxable account. But what I quickly realized when I hit my 30s was that I never really wanted these things to begin with. See, the truth is, I never wanted a home. I got really burnt out from my pharmacy career. And I took a pause on my financial life to really grow and start my business. And the family part, definitely not on track with that. Never mind, I don't probably anticipate getting married anytime soon. And now that I'm in my 30s, the truth is, sometimes I feel more lost than ever. And I ask myself, what is the point of all this? What is the point of continuing on my life? I know it's a dark thought, and chances are I'm not the only one alone. So often we see on social media that everybody's so happy. They're portraying like their hikes, their babies, their marriages, all that sort of stuff. But how often are people just real on social media? And while I definitely don't feel the doom and gloom every single day from everyday life, I do notice myself tending toward negative spirals when things don't go out as planned. I call this the negative spiral. And sometimes when one bad situation happens, it feels like another one happens, another one happens, and another one happens. And sometimes things can just have a domino effect. Like most recently, this week, I actually lost one of my major clients for inbound closing. Overnight, I lost over 80% of my income, just like that. And the truth is, it's entrepreneur life sometimes. Not only that, I took a huge hit in my relationship life recently, which I'll probably cover in another video, and I basically lost one of my major support systems. In terms of how I'm feeling, I feel a bit angry, I feel a bit sad, and I feel a bit anxious because it makes me question, is what I'm doing truly sustainable for the long term? And these feelings that I'm having really suck sometimes. First of all, losing money is never fun. Second thing is taking an L in your relationship life and losing one of the core support systems that you have in life, that isn't easy. And emotionally and mentally, as I was checking in, I realized one of the reasons why I was so upset is because it was taking a hit to my ego and my pride. I thought I would be so much further down the line at 33 than where I am right now. And that can be a hard pill to swallow sometimes. Sometimes it's this expectation or attachment to this expectation that causes this pain, this suffering. And according to Buddha said, the root of suffering is attachment. But the truth is, it's f***ing hard. To be honest, detaching my self-worth from my work and results has always been difficult ever since I could remember. Especially when I was growing up, my self-worth always felt like it was determined by the grades I brought home, the money I made, the career path I chose. Whether my parents realized it or not, I always felt compared to and never good enough when I even tried doing my best a lot of the time. We hear that phrase, just focus on doing your best. But a lot of time when you're in the spiral, you start asking yourself, well, my best isn't good enough. And you start beating yourself up, at least in my case. Oftentimes when I was around my parents or other people in the Asian community, it would feel like this.
Your grades suck. Be smarter. Kevin, you so lazy. Work harder. Hey fat ass, you so fat. Go on a diet. 屌，食多啲菜啊，肥仔。And you wonder why I never come home for dinner.
What the deal? And yes, that was my failed attempt to do a Cantonese accent. But does anyone else feel this way with their parents? And when I think about the work that I did during my college days, my high school days, throughout my whole academic career, right, and even pharmacy school, I always pushed myself and I held myself accountable for my own successes. But I also took a lot of the failures out on myself personally. And even in the line of work that I do with digital marketing, inbound sales, my inner voice, my negative thoughts tend to sound like this. If I was good enough and worth it, I would still have my client and be making a shit ton of money. If I was good enough and worth it, I wouldn't be single, binge eating pizza, churros, and ice cream at the Costco food court by myself. And by the way, if you know that you're breaking keto at the Costco food court, you know things are pretty bad. And these habits of negative self-talk, these are old habits, and habits are hard to die. And I actually found this really cool article from Psychology Today. It says, according to the National Science Foundation, the average person has about 1,200 to 60,000 thoughts per day. Of those, 80% are negative, and 95% are exactly the same repetitive thoughts as the day before. And 80% of those are negative as well. But there's more. And so you're probably asking like, yo, negative thoughts? What's the big deal with that? Well, again, according to Psychology Today, one large study found that rumination and self-blame over negative events were linked to an increased risk of mental problems, decreased motivation, and increased chance of depression. Those who engage in negative self-talk tend to be more stressed because their reality is altered to create an experience where they don't have the ability to reach the goals they've set for themselves. Negative self-talk can lead to a lower ability to see opportunities, as well as a decreased tendency to capitalize on these opportunities. What this means is that there's a heightened sense of stress that comes from both the perception and changes in behavior that come from it. Basically, what it means is this sounds like almost every Asian household that I know of as well. This is important because we all go through dips. Failure is inevitable, especially if you're trying to start a business or do something really, really difficult, like pursue pharmacy school, medical school, or any other professional career. And while it can be painful to kind of go through that experience, it doesn't have to be. If you're anything like me, when I was younger, I didn't have any healthy coping mechanisms or resources like therapy as well. To be honest, it was actually kind of looked down upon. Therapy was looked at for crazy people. My dad, who fought in the Vietnam War on the American side, had PTSD symptoms but never went in. And sometimes I wonder, what would be the effects if he actually sought out help? And how would my relationship with my dad kind of changed as well? So oftentimes I was kind of left dealing with, these hard times during my childhood, during high school, during middle school, when I felt like I was alone. And oftentimes when I was going through hard times, I would just tell myself to suck it up, don't be a bitch, these type of thoughts as well. And what this does, it kind of invalidates our feelings, right? And which, based off my experience, when you do this, it really eats away at your self-confidence. So many times in my life where I try to get attention or seek affirmation, do ratchet things so people would notice me just to get attention, because I never felt like I was good enough, and I was trying to see external validation just to kind of resolve that feeling that I was feeling. And in high school, I don't really talk about this too much, but probably didn't help that I had suicidal ideation in high school. I used to ask myself, like, would anyone really care if I didn't wake up tomorrow? I would sit in bed for hours and hours and hours, and just with the stress of school, with the stress of being alone, it was like a dark place that I couldn't get out of, but eventually I did. So how do we go about changing this? Not only to get more done, but really build a better relationship with ourselves so we can just honestly just feel a lot happier and not be stuck in these negative spirals as well. So in today's video, I actually reached out to my neurohacking coach and my therapist to just see their expert opinion on how I can overcome this feeling of feeling behind in life. You'll see real time about how things like neurohacking coaching actually work. And also I throw a bit of my personal experience of what it's like dealing with this as well, and how I've been personally doing the work to overcome this as well. And of course, your boy threw in some skits to lighten up the mood. Just because it's a dark topic, it doesn't have to be dark 100% of the time. So it's my first time doing skits here too. And most importantly, I want to share the 3 main things that, I'm doing to really help me where I'm taking a big fat L in my life at this point. So if you're going through the feeling of feeling behind in life or feeling like a failure in life, don't worry. This video may help you out and give you a new perspective on life and your current state at the moment. Now, before we start, let me know in the comments. Do you feel like you're failing and behind at life? If so, let me know how you're feeling. And as people are sharing their experiences in the comments, let's just make sure we keep things positive and at least support each other too. Me and my team will keep a close eye on the comments, so trying to make it as safe space as possible as well. And as always, timestamps are below, so if you want to jump around, check out a skit, or if one section is a little too long, you can skip over to the next session. And of course, all resources are in the description below, so you can check those out, support my channel, and I appreciate that. Anyways, let's go on to the video. Step 1, seek expert help. When things change inside you, things change around you. So let me ask you a question. Do you have expert help, or do you rely on the friends around you to support you? Growing up, my family never really had the resources for a therapist and didn't really value mental health. For example, I gave you that example of my father and PTSD, but when my father eventually passed, it was really difficult to kind of suggest therapy to my mom. Never mind, take therapy for myself as well. But as I got older, I noticed that I would always feel frustrated and stuck emotionally. Like logically, I felt like, I was very strong, like, oh yeah, Kevin, you can look at it this way. But inside, I just didn't feel good. And I always felt this disconnect as well. So a few months ago, I actually hired on a therapist, a business coach, and most importantly, my neurohacking coach. And it wasn't some time after I brought up some experts where I was chopping up with my friends over lunch where they asked me, why not talk to your friends and family and the people around you if you need support? And for so long, I actually did that exact thing. But have you ever been in one of those friendships, or even maybe some of your family, where they bring up topics where it just feels like an energy suck? Maybe you have that friend who unloads all their problems on you, which have you feeling overwhelmed and thinking, damn, I didn't sign up for this. Sometimes it can be really, really dark. And that's one of the reasons why I hired professional help, was because experts let your friends be your friends. And the problem with solely relying on your friends is like, I want my friends to be my friends. The last thing I want to do is burden my loved ones with my own problems, my own shit, even though they'd probably be happy to listen to as well and would pick up my phone call at a moment's notice. If you want an example of unloading some deep, dark, heavy shit on someone, check out my recent coaching session with my friend Eugene. And cool fact, he's not only my neurohacking coach, but he's also a pharmacist too. So enjoy.
So how stable has your relationship been growing up with yourself?
Growing up, not stable at all. And I would say even more recently too. More recently, it's been, I would say even the last like 6 months, it's been a lot better because I still prioritize like my needs and stuff too, like getting therapy, making sure I go, like doing all the major things, acts of self-love and stuff. But in terms of emotionally and stuff too, I don't know, like I honestly like, okay, so I told this, I was like, honestly, I understand why that guy, like why people like that Zappos guys, Tony
Tony Say.
Yeah, Tony Say, right? I can see why they committed suicide. And honestly, if I did not have the right relationships in front of me, I'd probably be one of those statistics. I told her that yesterday. And I thought about it. I was like, it's like a lot of it is just so emotional and stuff. And when I get thrown into these emotional loops, I feel like my relationship with myself is like goes out the window and shit.
Right.
So back to my point, I literally in my conversation to my coach told him I understand emotionally why entrepreneurs like Tony Say, how they take their own life away. I can empathize with them. Imagine if you have your normal everyday friend, that you chop it up with, you see at work, saying that. How would they feel? Would they really know what to do? That is some heavy shit. So that leads me to the next thing about why I decided to hire an expert. Experts help give specific advice to your specific situation. As I get older, one of the most important things for me is getting expert advice that is specific to my situation, not just general tips or general opinions that people see on YouTube. I mean, how many times has this kind of happened to you where a friend gives you advice? Check this out. Has this happened to you?
Hey Kevin, have you watched Tim Ferriss's new morning routine? Yes. Hey Kevin, have you seen Ali Abdal's desk setup? Yes. Alright, time for some personal time. Hey Kevin, have you tried NoFap? What the? Yes.
And anyways, what I found is that friends, they're typically really great for sharing videos, quick tips, and all that sort of stuff. Very general stuff. But that's the thing with experts. Their living is based off of helping people like me full time. Chances are they've seen situations like mine over and over and over again. They know what works and they know what doesn't work as well. Now, it does take a little bit of trust to be like, hey, do I trust this person handling my mental health? But when you find someone who is really great, you just click with them. One of the things that I am so glad when I'm speaking to my therapist or someone like Eugene is that he reminds me of my progress even when I can't necessarily see it. Because when you're dealing with mental health, it's not like a overnight type of thing. It's progression over time. And sometimes you forget to pat yourself on the back and just realize how far you've come. So after dropping that heavy shit on Eugene about how I see and can empathize about why entrepreneurs take their own life, Eugene gives me this advice and reminds me about how far I've come. Check out this snippet from our coaching session.
But the irony is, you just acknowledge these past 6 months you've been investing in yourself more. Because, and honestly, that's the highest priority here, isn't it? If your relationship with yourself isn't healthy, it isn't stable, everything outside of yourself you're doing it for you. You're not doing it for them, right?
Yeah.
Those fears you're asking, what if this doesn't work out, whatever, like either way, it's never going to happen if you don't have a better relationship with yourself. It's just going to lead to toxicity at some point. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. So, but that's what the irony is. You've been showing up for yourself, dude. Like, I don't know how much you see that in yourself, but the amount you've been showing up for yourself wasn't an attempt to stabilize this relationship with yourself. You've been doing a lot of amazing work.
Yeah.
It's like you're craving stability, but I'm watching you from the outside, putting in your all to create that stability. I know you might be referring to things like on the outside, like cash and all that kind of stuff, right? Like cash relationships, but I'm watching you stabilize your relationship with yourself over time.
Yeah, I guess that's hard for me to kind of see where I was like maybe 1 year ago or 2 years ago and stuff like that too.
You know what the superpower is when you stabilize your relationship with yourself?
More money? No, just kidding.
Well, honestly, yeah. Honestly, you'll see it happen, right?
Yeah.
That's a side comment, but if we just stay on this for a second, think about this. If you're stabilizing your relationship with yourself, you remember do you remember that example I give about the piano players? They had brain scans tied to their head.
Yeah.
And what they discovered was they had the same brain scans as the people who were just imagining playing the piano. Your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality is the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
What's so cool about this? When you have a stable relationship with yourself, no matter what happens outside of you, it doesn't affect you as much emotionally because you have such a strong relationship with yourself. Do you see what I'm saying? Because you treat yourself as if you would treat someone else that you loved, especially during challenging times. The only time it goes out the door is when the limiting belief kicks in, going like, see, I told you, you're not worth much. If you're worth something, they would have still kept you. That's basically what they're telling you right now, is you're not worth keeping on the team, even though you were hitting all the numbers, even though you were right, like hitting all the right marks in terms of performance.
Yeah.
You still weren't good enough for that. But here's the thing though, that's not current Kevin talking. That's the 5-year-old Kevin talking. That's the 7-year-old Kevin talking. Do you see what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
It's those same examples that you gave earlier. But here's the thing, is you're getting more aware of this. Like you did this inner work before the stuff was happening, right? With the progression of the relationship there, where you were able to kind of take a moment to see like whatever emotion is coming up right now is not you. It's a past version of you. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you remember do you remember me talking a little bit about the purpose of emotions? It's for memory purposes. Think about this. I'm sure you remember more details during moments in your life where the emotion was more intense, higher emotional intensity, right? The first time you asked a girl out, or recently, I'm sure you remember some details of times you were with Christine, right? The higher the emotional intensity, the more vivid the memory. This is why you can remember more little details, right? What color shirt you were wearing, what kind of shirt someone else was wearing. Do you see what I'm saying there? So it's meant for memory. That's the purpose of an emotion. It's so that, especially when the emotions aren't feeling good, boom, what is your brain doing? It's scanning through all past information that you have stored in your brain and going, hey, remember this time that your dad did this and how shitty that felt? This feels a lot like that right now. So let's do the same thing you did back then where you would get upset. and you're reacting to a past memory. Think about this. If you never had those experiences with your dad, if you never had that, and this happened to you the first time, do you think you would have been as angry? Do you see what I'm saying? Like if this was the first new novel experience of like getting caught off guard and someone letting you go, probably would have been more hurt than anger, wouldn't it? Because it's just the first time you're just like, oh my God, I don't know how to deal with this because I've never dealt with this before.
Yeah.
But because you've dealt with it before, that's why the anger kicks in, because your brain's trying to fight back.
So after doing this kind of internal work or self-work, I usually feel a lot lighter, feel more stress-free, and oftentimes I have a better clarity of what to do next because I'm not burdened by my emotions all the time. What I've learned about emotional intelligence and all that is that it's important to process our emotions, because if we don't, they'll come up and we tend to not make really good decisions in the heat of the moment. And when I make better decisions, I take better actions, and as a result, I see better consequences out of them as well. Step 2, take time to sit and understand your emotions. Interrupting our destructive habits and awakening our heart is the work of a lifetime. Pema Chodron, When Things Fall Apart. So let me ask you another question. How often do you let yourself take the time to sit in your emotions? If this concept is a bit foreign to you, hey, we're probably in the same boat. Growing up, I was never really taught on how to feel my emotions as a kid. Maybe it's an Asian thing, but whenever I felt sad, angry, upset, I would actually get yelled at by my dad. He would a lot of times say, "Why are you so upset for?" Or "Why are you angry for?" And as a result, whenever I felt negative emotions, I would feel super guilty about myself. And these feelings of, not worth it and being a failure, being behind would always come up. Over time, I built up the belief that I'm not important. My needs aren't important because I'm not worth it. And as I got older and older, I realized I carried these habits into not only my pharmacy career as a pharmacist, but also into my entrepreneurial career as well. In addition to that, I also picked up something I call Asian dad syndrome, where I say, my feelings, and I just go into immediately solving the issue or people pleasing as well. And I would go through these emotional roller coasters. When I did really well financially, or when I hit this accomplishment, I was through the moon, right? But when I wasn't performing, when I had slumps, when unexpected things happened, it would really tank my self-worth. And the only time I really felt worth it is when I delivered some sort of tangible result. So detaching my self-worth from my work has not been an easy process. And when I asked Eugene, my neurohacking coach, about how do you build a better relationship, how do I detach myself from my self-worth and give myself unconditional love, whether on paper I perform or don't perform, how do I do that? And this is what he said during our coaching session.
Number one is just knowing and seeing that, like, okay, this is just 5-year-old Kevin coming up. As an example, I don't know if it's necessarily 5-year-old Kevin. It could be a different past version of yourself. But just acknowledging the only reason you're feeling this is because of that. Do you see what I'm saying there? That's the only reason you're feeling what you're feeling. Because if nothing like this has ever happened to you before, you have no frame of reference to compare it to, which then you wouldn't feel what you're feeling in that moment, right? If you never had dad bait and switch you before, if you never had hurtful, shameful, rejecting moments like that before, and this happens to you the first time, you would not immediately enter into anger, because anger is a protective mechanism. It's trying to protect you from something that you've already been hurt by.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
So number one is you separate yourself as an observer, just like you're able to kind of watch something else as an observer. If you're able to separate yourself in the moment, this is where labeling your emotions helps a lot. Because to say, I feel sad, you understand this is a feeling. This is not who you are. And this must be past version of a different Kevin. And you're able to look at that past Kevin, and if you're not in survival state, you don't have to react. You don't have to react and try to go immediately into strategizing. You can just sit there with yourself. And for the first time, 5-year-old Kevin can feel seen by you, or for the first of many times, right? Because you've been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And when you guys see each other, you're able to ask these powerful questions to that 5-year-old Kevin. It's like, is it really true that you're not good enough? Like, what made you decide this was true? Well, dad did this thing. Remember these things dad did? I remember that. But I'm able to see some other things now. Because you were never not good enough for dad. You can never be not good enough for dad, because you're priceless. And I have proof here. Mom will always prove to you that there is no such thing as good enough or bad enough. You'll meet a beautiful woman named Christine that can show you that there's no such thing as good enough, not good enough. And you know what? There was no such thing with good enough, not good enough with your dad either. Because every time he did that shit, it had nothing to do with you. He was in his own pain. He was in his own suffering. And that was his way of reacting in survival state to his fears, to his pain. You know, dad never had a dad. He never had the emotional support. And you know what? That's probably also the reason why he doesn't know how to be a dad. Because not enough people in his life showed him what it feels like to be emotionally connected to him. That's why he's having so much trouble learning how to be very emotionally connected to you. And that's why he's so rough around the edges. And if 5-year-old Kevin can see that, then you can separate the current experience from the meaning that 5-year-old Kevin is attaching to it. Where you're able to see, okay, so let's take a look at right now what's happening. We just lost a client. But can you see, 5-year-old Kevin, that this has nothing to do with you being good enough or not good enough? Let's both look at some things that maybe we might not be seeing. I need you to look at it with me rather than you pulling me into the past and getting me stuck in the matrix again, right? It's like, let's take a look. I hit my numbers, so it had nothing to do with my skills. I can't be good enough or not good enough for anyone. So all that's happening is we're just losing a client. And we can try to figure this out. And if they're being rude about it, or if they're not being transparent, they got their own shit to deal with, right? Like you said, for a company to tout being transparent and they can't be transparent with you internally as a company, that says less about you and more about them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with you. They got their own issues. Doesn't that even give you a little bit of gratitude? It's like, wow, if they're the type of people that's going to be like that, maybe I don't want to work for them.
Yeah.
Like, would you want to work with a team says outwardly, publicly that they value transparency, but they don't have the balls to be transparent with you when it's one-on-one conversation with their own team, right? Do you see what I'm saying there? Isn't it even more important to be transparent when it's the hardest, which is when it's more intimate, right? Like more closer settings, like with closer, like your staff members compared to like a customer.
Yeah.
And you're just exploring like this. You're asking questions. Like I'm just posing questions here. I'm just trying to poke holes here. And then you look at this and you go, what does any of this have to do with you being good enough or not good enough? Can you see it has nothing to do with it?
Yeah.
But the only reason it has anything to do with this because 5-year-old Kevin is attaching it to the meaning, to the experience, the meaning to the experience.
Yeah.
How does that feel just thinking this through for a second?
Real talk, sitting with my emotions is a completely new thing for me. I've been doing it about a year since I hired on my therapist. My instincts usually is to immediately go to fixing a problem, but long term, what I realize is that this doesn't solve the core root problem, which is solving the limiting belief. And my limiting belief of feeling, behind and feeling like a failure at life is really the core belief of I'm not worth it. I'm not good enough. And part of this deep work or self-worth, as woo-woo-y as it sounds, it's really been able to change my life. Now I have some ability to kind of label my emotions, sit with my emotions, and understand the reason why I feel like the way I do. And as a result, it's actually brought me a lot closer to the friends and people around me as well, just because I'm able to express my emotions a lot more. Along with working with Eugene and my therapist, some resources that I'm really loving are these two things. When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron, and Mark Grove's content as well. He has a podcast, but I'm specifically taking his courses, Rediscover Your Wholeness program, which I'll include in the description below. And if you want to work with Eugene, I'll leave his links below where you can contact. Game changer for sure. Step 3, go on an escape. You can rise up from anything. You can completely recreate yourself. All that matters is you decide today and never look back. Ideal Ahmed. So most recently, after going through everything with the whole relationship thing, with losing my major client, I just really needed to get the out. And what I realized was planning something that you can look forward to is probably one of the most therapeutic things in the world. So as I was in Arizona, I actually planned out a last minute weekend trip to one of my favorite cities, Dallas. Other than the barbecue, I love the vibe of Dallas. It has a lot of open roads where you can speed down in your S4, amazing Asian food surprisingly, and also it has all these California elements that I miss at home. While I was in Dallas, I got to watch some of the UFC fights, ate all you can eat shabu, had these amazing Japanese hand rolls, and really explored downtown Dallas for some amazing sunset shots as well. But the most important thing that I did in Dallas was visiting my close friends there. What I found personally helpful for me during tough times is, for myself, since I'm extroverted, not isolating myself in my room and all that, it's more important for me to really take some of that time by myself, but spend more of that time with my closest friends around me as well. But I do have to mention, I do have crazy friends like my friend Molly over here as well.
Crazy.
I want to monetize offers.
You're such a crazy girl.
Welcome to Dallas, Kevin.
Thanks for the tour. Give me the tour. Give me the tour guide.
Dallas guys looking for the Abby.
Okay.
And then here is Tom's favorite place.
Instead of saying Harwood International, it'd be Molly International.
This is Tom's favorite place that he takes everyone to.
Yes.
To.
Really?
His favorite is Tom.
Why do you take everyone?
It's the
Because,
happiest hour.
because he doesn't have to pay for parking.
What's up? You're vlogging? I'm vlogging? Hey, technically, I'm vlogging your vlog.
I'm gonna monetize.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna use my iPhone.
Oh my god.
I'm using my iPhone.
Oh my
I'm
god.
gonna vlog with my iPhone.
Oh my god. 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 This is actually one of my favorite cameras. Believe it or not.
I feel like my life is pretty interesting.
Who recommended you this camera?
Well, I had the Mark 1,
Yeah.
and then I upgraded to a Mark 2.
Dude, this is my favorite camera. I sold it recently.
Alright. Stack a little bit.
Oh shit. I thought we were gonna cheers each other.
Oh man.
Even though I have crazy friends like my friend Molly, moments like these continuously remind me to focus on what really matters and reminds me why I work so damn hard. And it's really to spend time with my kick-ass friends and create these memories with them as well. Train your mind to see the good in everything. Positivity is a choice. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Unknown. So while all these things have really helped me feel happier and aligned to my why and my purpose, I guess the real question is do I still feel like a failure or behind at 33 years old? And while I would love to say is like I never feel this way anymore, the truth is if I said that, I would be lying. Sometimes I do feel like I'm not making progress fast enough, especially when I start comparing my friends around me, those who also have businesses, who are also closing and doing other projects as well. And there are times when I see the results of the people around me and I want to push myself harder, to hustle harder, to play catch up as well. And while this isn't necessarily a bad thing in the short term, over the long term, what I've really experienced are periods of extreme burnout where I go through these high peaks and major crashes as well. And sometimes it feels like I'm just reacting. I'm putting a lot more stress on myself. It feels like mental constipation, where it puts even more pressure to figure out things. And that makes it harder and harder to figure out things like, what do I really want to do in life? What is really best for me at this point in time? So while I do feel like I'm behind or not worth it or feeling like a failure at times from time to time, the one benefit I've noticed through this self-work is that my thoughts of feeling behind and feeling like a failure and feeling not worth it happen less and less and less. They don't happen as often as before. And going through this process, the more work I do with people like Eugene and my therapist, the more time I spend on courses on journaling with like Mark Rose, the more time I spend with my crazy ass friends like Tom and Molly, the more I feel pulled to my work, which has me feeling a lot more fulfilled in life and honestly just feeling a lot happier in life as well. What I've also realized is that this process is not an overnight thing. Having those moments of I feel so I feel like I'm behind, I feel like I'm a failure is a part of that process. It's normal to go through this process as well, and have an understanding of, you know, why am I reacting this way? Why am I having these feelings? What are these feelings really solving as well? What are they trying to solve? Maybe it's loneliness. It could be plenty of different reasons as well. So this is my gentle reminder to you as well. If you're going through this video, you made it all the way down here, you're going through difficult times, it's normal to feel shitty. It's normal to feel okay. And it's okay to be scared about not knowing your future. I know for myself, I feel that way sometimes. Actually, a lot of times. But it reminds me of this other quote by Pema Chodron. She says, "Fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth." And one of the girls that I was actually recently talking to reminded me of an important lesson as well. She used to tell me that it was okay to not feel good, to be upset, to feel angry. But just like how good times don't last forever, neither do the bad. Everything is impermanent. What she was basically telling me was that shit don't last forever. And it's so true. I think about my relationships in my life, everything that is around me. And rather than take this as a really negative thought, it made me realize that nothing that I do in my life, I can really truly up. And that's all often the beauty of life. It's like a river. We go through these experiences, we lose people in our life, and knowing that everything is temporary at least has made me a lot more grateful in life. Knowing that, you know, I'm spending my most precious asset of time with this certain person, or I'm spending time to create these memories, knowing that one day, you know, we can never have these moments ever again. And the last main thing is just to trust the process and realize that there's never a complete aha moment. There's not one solution to just making yourself feel better, like a quick fix. It's not like doing a line of cocaine and you feel this dopamine hit. It's a very subtle thing. And from time to time, you'll start noticing that and saying to yourself like, oh shit, I'm realizing that I'm having more good days than bad days. So be a little bit more compassionate with yourself. Gently rebel against your thoughts about your self-worth and ask, is it true? And most importantly, be authentic to yourself. Be real with yourself. If you're not feeling good, you're not feeling good. Real talk, right? And one last thing I want you to know about my channel. Recently, I've been trying something new where I upload fewer videos and try to increase the production value as well. If you've been a long time follower of me, you know that I've never really incorporated skits, which I tried doing in this one, and I realized, oh shit, I really suck at acting and I'm really not that great at filmmaking and shooting with the camera. So I know I gotta work on that. But what are your thoughts about this video in particular? Do you want to see more videos like this? And what videos do you want to see from me next? I know some people want me to do some business videos on inbound closing. I know some people want me to do these more lifestyle videos and check-ins and stuff like that. So what do you want to see more from me? I love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe so you can actually get updated of when I actually shoot your videos. Who knows? Would it be a shame if I took your idea and you didn't subscribe and you never saw your video idea populate as well? So anyways, I'm Kevin Yee. Stay rebellious, stay authentic, and stay compassionate. Peace.